Thank you, Al Milgrom, for sharing those delightful clips with us and some of your philosophy about children's film programs. Thanks to all of you for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin Cities Metropolitan Library Service Agency. We thank you for watching, and we hope you visit your public library often. The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Where do you find quality film programming for children? This is an issue for many parents and adults working with children. Our guest today, Al Milgrom, is director of the University of Minnesota Film Society. He'll be talking about the Children's Film Festival sponsored by the Film Society and has brought several clips of Canadian and British films that are an alternative to some of the commercial offerings available. Al, we're delighted to have you with us today on All About Kids. You and the University Film Society have been legendary in the metro area and the Twin Cities, certainly, because you are providing programming that's totally different from what parents and children find in their local theaters. What's your philosophy? Why are you doing this?
Well, we see a lot of films. We run probably 200 to 250 films a year. That's 4 or 5 films a week. In order to know what's out there, I've got to go to a lot of festivals. I talk to people making film kids programs, and so I see a lot of stuff that never manages to get into the normal media, and a lot of it's very good. And I think to myself, this should be seen in this area, so why not? Plus, a good friend of mine who runs the only competitive children's film festival in the U.S., the Chicago International Children's Film Festival, always has films hanging around after he's finished with them. And so I say this is a great opportunity to bring some of them to the cities. Plus, we have to stay open anyway, and we depend a lot on public support because we get very few grants, and we basically exist on ticket sales at the box office. So if we've got spots open during good matinee times, this is a very good chance to fill it up with new kid stuff that would never been seen otherwise. So I think, and maybe sooner or later, some of them do get picked up in video, but 2 or 3 years later. But in the film programming world, in Europe, for example, children's film is very big. There are children's film festivals in almost every major country. European countries support children's film programming even with tax dollars. And so there's a lot of product out there. And since my job is to bring this stuff here, I say this had been a neglected area. Obviously, we can't, the stuff we bring in doesn't repeat the Hollywood formulas. These come from an almost 180-degree counter perspective.
Well, here you are, December 1991, competing with some of the big Hollywood releases, these films that have incredible PR budgets being promoted locally, and you are offering something that's maybe more artistic, requires children who are watching it to do a little more thinking, but they're still fun. How does this work? How do you promote your
Well,
thing?
it's sort of depressing to have to fight the budget on Beauty and the Beast and the millions of dollars put into Curly and Sue and My Girl and all of the other big Christmas blockbusters. And I guess we have to rely on the hipness of the professionals in the field, like children's libraries, the MELSA and the library circuit, children's book people, and hope that they'll help spread the word. It's very much a word-of-mouth process. Even though we've been doing children's programming fairly actively for the last 4 years, each year it's starting from scratch again, hoping to get the word out. Now, this 1991 season has been marked by the 2 blizzards, and the Children's Film Festival happened right at Halloween weekend. So I think we did have one couple show up on a Saturday morning to see the program. Then the last weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, we opened with the U.S. premiere of a new Canadian film called appropriately enough, or inappropriately enough, The Last Winter. Should have been the first winter, but this was also snowed out.
Well,
so you see, it's a tough road to keep shoveling here.
Well, you brought a tape of The Last Winter. Let's take a look at a little clip from that, and maybe you can then give us some comments on why it's special.
Okay.
Will, you sleeping? Yeah. You know, if you lay on the ground real still, you can feel the earth moving. Then how come we're still in the same place then? 'Cause the earth holds on to you like a great big magnet. Ugh, I hate maggots. Grandpa Jack says the world's flying through space at 60,000 miles an hour. Perfect, ain't it? We'll always be going somewhere, but we'll never have to leave. And you know what? What? I wouldn't change a thing. Well,
That was an English-Canadian feature of the year. What, in your opinion, makes this film different and special?
Well, it's exceptionally well photographed. It's a story that rings a bell with the Minnesotans and maybe kind of a prairie culture. It's a story of as you saw, the young boy growing up in the Canadian prairie near Winnipeg, and the conflicts in coming to terms with change. And you know, if the last winter may mean to some people that spring is not far behind, but to this boy, spring is a long way behind, because he doesn't want to leave the life on the farm, his horse, his dog, his friends, and his grandpa, who bequeathed the farm to the family. But the family has to move on, and they end up going to the city. It's it's a sweet story. It's doesn't have mega buck production. There's no full orchestra behind every event. The acting is very unpretentious. Of course, I mean, this doesn't mean that the acting in a lot of the current holiday films is pretentious. There's some excellent child actors in Hollywood, but the film is meant to sort of create some sense of family warmth in a rather simple way. It's
in a non-saccharine way, not
not overly, and it's not geared on the set on the laugh meter. It doesn't have to make $1 million to break even. It doesn't have to have TV commercials, but it has to be known that the film's available.
Do you go to the theater to watch what Hollywood is producing so that you can make these comparisons?
I try to. I try to catch. I'm not up to date at the moment because there's so much new stuff coming out. But I know from some of the films that we run, they're very offbeat. Most of the films for example, in the Children's Film Festival that we run every year, it's now going into the 4th year, or go next year into the 5th year, are kind of based on more mythic and legend, different level of fantasy.
Requires a little more involvement by children, a little more use of their own imagination.
Yeah, well, the films in the Children's Film Festival are pitched up to the age of 14 or 15. Last winter is for 8 to 80. Well, given the current production levels, I mean, it seems that reality theme films have strong appeal to very sophisticated kids level. Some of the films here are scripted at a level that also tries to tap into a level of sophistication, but without telegraphing the ideas. It's more implicit in a story and in a plot structure.
I think this is something that's coming through in children's literature too.
Really?
Much more realism, much more sophistication.
Well, there's a lot of adaptation or attempts to exploit hero and quest stories. Joseph Campbell and a lot of the anthropological stuff on fantasy, legend, myth is now getting plugged into a lot of the films that are represented here, plus the way children's filmmakers, film producers and directors are working. The Hollywood film is basically a laugh-generated entertainment film with gags. I mean, you can put together a series of gags, of crazy incidents, and with some name stars, and everybody wants to get in on it. Of course, if they keep seeing it on TV all the time, they even want more to be in on the trendy film of the season. Well, The Addams Family, for example, is big Christmas '91 hit. How many kids have electric chairs in their playroom, for example?
I hope not very many.
Well, yeah,
so you see a sort of a sense of the macabre and also violence masquerading as humor?
I mean, the current commercial product is criticized for high level of violence. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger always has to dispatch the bad guys, even though he's talking with kids in the classroom to improve their lives. Violence is all over the place.
Do you think that Hollywood is afraid that without violence or without this real obvious slapstick, people aren't going to go?
I don't know. Yeah, Hollywood is afraid that no matter how well the critics like the film, the box office turnstiles aren't going to click. And the way that you make them click is just entertainment value, fun and games and laughs, and special effects. A number of these films are much more modest. They're based on maybe character, interrelationships, with the time to develop a sets of relationships among the characters and within the story. It's hard to categorize it in general, but for example, a series of films that we've introduced here in the recent years are productions from Canada, a Montreal firm called Productions de Fête. They started out with the Dog That Stopped the War. I don't know if this rings a bell. It's the Peanut Butter Solution. Does that these films that get into the library circuit? Tommy Tricker and the Stamp Traveler, Bach and Broccoli, Tadpole and the Whale, 15 films, and these sold well worldwide, but they're very unknown in the U.S. And many of them are available on video, some not. For example, we're re-showing Tommy Tricker in the Stamp Traveler, which is a surefire audience favorite of kids. This in 91, the Christmas to New Year's children's program. We're going to be showing about 7 or 8 films between Christmas and New Year's when kids are out of school in the afternoons at the Bell Museum on the U campus, 1 and 3 in the afternoon.
We'll have your number
and
at
Tommy
the end
Tricker,
of the program,
yeah,
so
okay.
people could call for information.
But these Canadian productions are designed by, I guess, children's experts. I'm not a children's expert. I just see a lot of films and I know what I like, and I try to bring stuff that is played around elsewhere.
Well, and you involve the community, and I think you've raised the level of awareness of what children's films can be. A few minutes ago, you talked about some of the films being the quest, children growing up, the challenge, the change. You did bring another film with you called The Challenges, which was the best film at the Chicago Film Festival.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that and see how this compares with some of what you've been talking about.
Okay.
I feel sick. Oh, nonsense. You'll make friends in no time. Well, I haven't finished unpacking. I have to... Mackie, if I am prepared to drive all the way to Port Wilson for a part-time job, the least you can do is try and have a good time. Deal? Deal.
Are you Mackie? Hi, I'm Jenny. My mom met your mom at the real estate office.
Oh, yeah.
My mom said it should be nice to kids whose dads are dead or divorced.
Mine's...
Yeah, I know. Mine's divorced.
Well, another coming-of-age story with a young protagonist.
Yeah, this film actually was judged by a jury of children up to about 15 or 16 years old as the best film of 1991, the best feature film at the Chicago Children's International Film Festival, which is a competitive festival. It's the only competitive festival in the U.S. And so you get a chance to see what is out there that's good in the scale of 1 to 10.
Was this film produced in the United States?
It was a Canadian film produced in Toronto, again set in Manitoba, in Winnipeg.
Al, why do you think that Canada and Europe are doing a better job of coming up with interesting films for young people?
Well, I think it's simply because the Canadian government pours a lot of money into visual culture, into film. You've got the Canada Film Board. You've got the Telefilm Canada, which subsidizes film production. So if you've got a script, they'll maybe finance up to 60 or 70% of the production if they like it, and you have to go through committees and so forth. In Europe, the cultural ministries take a certain percent of the ticket, the film ticket price as a tax, and this is put into children's film programming. In Denmark, 30% of every item on the ticket tax goes for children's programming. The Scandinavians have been traditionally very concerned with, I guess, counteracting the evil influences of the modern world by hopefully providing some alternative medium for viewing. Of course, television, commercial television, isn't as pervasive in Europe as it is in America either, so maybe they don't feel they need to be as combative or militant maybe as we do or should here. The main thing is that there are a lot of interesting films out there, and audiences should have a chance to see them and a chance to know about them. So a lot depends on the coverage in the media. We get very little coverage in the Twin City papers. Minnesota Parent, Family Times, these, of course, do some coverage, but I'm speaking of the mainstream daily and Sunday papers. There's very little coverage of children's programming, don't you think?
Well, it's interesting in a society where we really are focusing on things for families to do with their children that there isn't more attention. I wonder if it does have to do with this emphasis that we're hearing a little bit about in schools, visual literacy, and the fact that in the United States, I don't think children or adults are taught or know how to be very critical about what they're watching, about what they're viewing. Commercial TV maybe doesn't have it has a great deal of appeal, but people don't understand how to be very discriminating in what they're watching. And that's something that librarians talk a lot about in terms of the kind of books children and young people are reading, and we certainly want them to explore the whole variety of children's literature, from the very best quality to the popular series. But if children are never given the opportunity to see or read anything out of the mass market appeal type, their visual or print literacy isn't going to expand.
Well, there's a certain moral level involved in these films, and many of the films that we'd shown in the festival this year, 91, were sort of self-esteem building. If a kid follows a story through in 50 or 60, 90 minutes, he's got to come out with something that he can use, and it might be a kind of a role model, a different kind of a role model than Honey, I've Shrunk the Kids, or some
sort of a bumbling,
or,
stupid parent,
or Home Alone. Yes, the kid's a hero, but that's not the sort of way that we go through life. So I mean, there is a kind of a didactic, underlying didactic element in these films. But back to the use of legend and myth and sort of heroic quest. A lot of the films then, especially the ones in the festival this year, slanted toward teaching the need for risk, commitment, sacrifice, following the journey, and then probably ending up vindicating yourself in the process. Well, I know in the case of, let's say, Tommy Tricker, this is both entertainment and very much, I guess, sort of one world, planet Earth kind of philosophy, where the young boy who travels around the world because he's shrunk on a postage stamp meets Chinese kids, Australian kids, North American kids. So I think maybe the moral is simpler than a Hollywood film, but it's also a more pointed idea that they take with them. I suppose since you're into children's literature, the idea that a book or a story has to teach a lesson, is this important?
No, definitely not.
Well,
not
okay,
didactic,
right.
but certainly we hope that children ultimately will read things that
it's
will
in the
help them.
It's in the subtext, because it can't be just simply frivolity to kill 90 minutes, can it?
Right, no. I think there needs to be a little meat, and the whole idea that as you grow up, literature and films can help you learn who you are and learn some of the things that you need to fit into adult society. Values is kind of a sticky word to use in relation to either books or films, but you are talking about courage, you're talking about self-esteem. You mentioned just having the idea of what you want to do when you grow up. Those are all things that kids are desperately trying to figure out now. And again, books and films can help
Well, there's a
children.
new production company that's very definitely exploiting these specific ideas. Two films that were run in one of the in the '91 festival, The Magic Boat and a film called Palooka. And this company has just produced two features. It's the first venture of a company in Santa Rosa, California called Enchanté, or Enchantment. And we hope to be able to bring these films back at some point. But well, as you can tell from the program of the festival, which is our main showpiece to give an idea of what's out there, that there's a wide range of things. You can't sort of say there's just one good or better film than this, but
Well, you're giving people a variety. You also do a lot of adult programming too, or films that appeal to adults.
and many of these films do have an adult pitch to them, because we can't make it, if we make it too specially narrow, then we lose 3/4 of an audience. And apparently there is now some sort of a hunger to come back to family programming.
Very definitely. I think many parents are disillusioned with what's available at the video library or the places where you can rent videos. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I want to go from the philosophical down to the real practical. Sometimes I wonder if people are reluctant to hit the U of M campus to go to the Bell Museum. Is parking a problem? Where can people go to, get to your programming?
Yeah, parking had been a problem. They've built a couple of new ramps now. There's a 4th Street ramp, 4th Street Southeast, closed ramp. There's a new ramp near Northrop Auditorium, the Church Street ramp. There's a ramp, again, right next to Bell Museum, the Nolte Museum, the Nolte Garage. There's a lot of parking around there, but I sympathize with people that are not.
But they shouldn't be
much around.
disillusioned. They can give you a call, and you can suggest the best place.
Yeah, we always end up spending a lot of our time telling them where to park at our.
Well, let's go back to the sublime again, and in the last couple of minutes, talk about your final philosophy or the impact of videos on films. Do you think people are sitting at home cocooning and watching?
Well, I should mention the one film by the widely known Ralph S. Mouse filmmaker John Matthews and The Mouse and the Motorcycle. These are widely appealing films, and we're going to be showing a couple of films during the Christmas program, '91 this year, on how Matthews makes these very complicated animations. I don't know if we have time to get just a fragment in of Uncle Elephant, his newest film.
Well, let's take a quick look.
Okay.
Hey, listen to this. Why is baseball like a cake?
Swing! Strike! One.
They both depend on the batter. Pretty funny, huh? No! Hey, batter.
Tough crowd.
Come on, just hit the ball, Arnie.
Okay, all right.
A delightful film. Al, you are there, you and the Youth Film Society, you are a force in the community, and in my opinion, you need to get to a broader audience, and hopefully All About Kids can help you a little bit. Your last words.
Well, as you say, we need to get the word out there more. We know that. We feel at these festivals and these special programs there's a much broader audience to appreciate these films. I'd say either watch the media, the Minneapolis Trib, St. Paul Pioneer Press Dispatch for the weekend listings, and they list our programming. Also, maybe you can pick up flyers at the library counters and the children's sections that we try to get flyers to.
Well, Al, thank you very much for
Okay.
being with us today.
Thanks for the
And
chance.
good
to-
luck on your
All right.
challenge and your quest.
Okay.